Hey everyone, this is Steve with another episode of Keep 'em Rollin'. And I know it's been way too long since my last video, and I could sit here and give you lots of excuses as to why I have not been doing videos, but that's not why you come here. You come here for the military stuff, and that's what we're gonna do. Today we have a recent find video, so I'm gonna share some really neat items with you. But before we get to that, I want to do a channel update. Two things. Number one, I have completely redone my war room. I have new display cases, new displays, I've moved furniture and the like. And what this means for all of you is we are going to have a room tour video coming up, probably in mid-January. The second thing is the reason for the room redo is that I have been able to acquire some absolutely amazing items, and it's a bittersweet experience, and I'll explain more as we get into it. But those are it for the channel updates. I do want to say that for all of you who are following me and have watched my videos, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And for those of you who are new subscribers, I hope this new content is to your liking. On that note, I guess we'll get right into the recent finds. The first pickup I want to share with you is this Ike Jacket right here. The tag in the pocket dates it to June of 1944, so it's a wartime dated jacket. And one thing that drew me to the jacket is the fact that there's no adornment. We don't have a discharge emblem over here on the soldier's right breast, and we don't have any ribbons on here. And why I like this is because this is how this jacket would have looked when the soldier was wearing it during World War II. The jacket does have a very strong laundry number here, G9512. I've tried doing research on the number, but as always with those numbers, there's a lot of G5912, so it's going to take a little bit of digging before I will hopefully be able to locate the soldier. The jacket has one 6-month overseas bar here on the left cuff. And then it does have the standard collar brass. We have a US right here, and then we have the armored collar brass right here. And both of these are your clutch backs. So if we flip this over, you can see that they're the clutch backs. And both of these have the smooth wartime clutches that you want to see. Let's see if I can get that put back so I don't lose it. Easier said than done with one hand. Is that it? Nope, that was my finger. All right, we're just gonna set it there right now. We'll put that back on in just a moment. The jacket also has the rank of sergeant on the left and the right. But the thing that drew me to this jacket is the fact that when we come over here to the soldier's right shoulder, we see that we have this beautiful 13th Armored insignia. Now the 13th, they arrived in Europe in January of 1945. They saw their combat throughout January, February, March, April, and May of 1945, right up to the end of the war. And then at the conclusion of the war, they returned home in June of 1945. I'm sorry, they returned home in July of 1945, and they began training for the invasion of Japan. Of course, that never occurred. The war ended in August, and the unit was eventually inactivated in November of 1945. Now, without knowing this soldier's story, my hypothesis is that this soldier, and a hypothesis is just a fancy term for guess, my hypothesis is that this soldier joined the 13th. This is where this soldier saw combat, arriving in January of 45, serving with the unit through until the end of the war. And then for whatever reason, this soldier's time was not up. Either they didn't have enough points to return home, or they were needed because of a specialty that they had. So they ended up being transferred to the 20th Armored, which we see over here on the soldier's left sleeve. And the 20th Armored, they arrived in Europe in February of 1945. They saw limited action, and then they eventually ended up in Germany and served as an occupation force. They returned in August of 1945 back to the States, and they began training for the invasion of Japan, which once again did not happen due to the war coming to an end, due to the atomic bomb being dropped. And so they stayed stateside. They were finally inactivated in April of 1946. So, once again, my hypothesis is the soldiers started with the 13th and then for whatever reason ended up transferring to the 20th, finishing their time, and that's why we have this beautiful beautiful double armored insignia Ike jacket. And ladies and gentlemen, that's really why I bought it, because it ticked kind of all the boxes with the 2 insignia and then the armored collar brass and the like. Now, what I paid for this jacket, I can't remember. That's horrible. But there was a lot of things going on. There was a lot of other deals, etc., taking place. I believe that I paid either $40 or $45. I know it wasn't more than $50, which I think was a very fair deal for such a nice example of a wartime armored Ike. Now, one other thing I do want to point out is you will notice here that I have this hanger. This hanger is a wooden hanger. I have been looking for ways to hang my uniforms, and what I've discovered is that I don't like plastic hangers because they don't give enough support on the shoulders of the uniforms. I don't like modern wooden hangers that you can find at your local big box stores. I've tried those, and they just don't seem to have the strength. I have a lot where the hook has actually pulled through the wooden frame and the uniform ends up on the floor. So what I've begun doing is looking for antique coat hangers. You can find antique coat hangers at antique shops, flea markets. I found them at estate sales. I go to the closets and people have bought the clothing and left the hangers, and I just make an offer on the old hangers. I like the ones that have this advertising. This one here, as you can see, probably a dry cleaner in Chicago. I see hangers that are hotel. This might also be a hotel. I've seen hangers from the Pullman Company and the like. So rarely do I pay more than a couple of dollars. Generally they're in the 50 cents to $1 range per hanger, depending on what they are. But it's also a really cool way to display your uniform. Nothing's neater than taking this out of the closet and having the vintage hanger on it. I should point out that archival standards dictate that really the best way to store your uniforms are flat, but I just don't have the storage space to store all my uniforms laying flat. I do have to hang them up. So that is the first find. Now let's move on to the second. The second find I want to share with you is this jacket right here. Now this is something I have been looking for many years. I have not purchased one because it seems like every time I find one of these, they're either really overpriced, we're talking $90 to $100+, or they're roached out. Roached out is just kind of a term for well used, lots of holes, lots of stains, lots of tears, or both in many cases, overpriced and roached out. This one here, it's kind of a funny story of how this came to me, and I'll get to that in just a moment, but let's talk about why I'm excited to add this to my collection. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a first pattern HBT jacket. If we look down here on the bottom, this wide band of material here and these buckles, etc., make this a first pattern. I love the first pattern HBT jacket, and this is the first one I've ever owned, so I'm quite happy about it. Let's begin with what makes a jacket HBT. HBT is a term that refers to the material of the jacket. Herringbone twill is the full term. And if you look into the jacket's pattern here, you can see those stripes with kind of that zigzag. That's the herringbone material. It was a very, very durable material, and it acts almost as a ripstop. So in other words, if I get a hole in this jacket or if I get a tear in this jacket, it stops it from spreading. So I get a small hole here. This material will prevent it from just continuing to rip and rip and rip. So it's very durable. The Army in 1940, they were looking for something to replace the current fatigue uniform that they were using. The current fatigue uniform at that time was a denim uniform that consisted of denim trousers, a denim jacket, the wool shirt, and the like. They saw the writing on the wall. They knew that we were going to be going into some sort of combat, whether it be limited or possible world war, and they wanted something they could outfit the soldiers in. So they came up with this combat uniform. This was meant to be worn for fatigue duty and in the field. It's done in a kind of light OD green color. This began to be issued in early 1941 and was issued all the way up through the latter part of 1942 when it was replaced by the second pattern HBT jacket. The jacket, as I said, it's HBT material. You see there. The jacket does have these beautiful 13-star buttons. We can zoom in and see if I can lift this up here so you can see the 13-star button. That's characteristic of both the first pattern and second pattern HBT jackets. What makes this a first pattern is this wide band, as I said, along the bottom. It turns it almost into like a British battle jacket. You have this, you have the two buttons here for closures, you have the two adjustment straps on the side. And when they changed to the second pattern, as stated, they did this in the latter part of 1942. And it doesn't mean that this jacket stopped being issued. They simply stopped manufacturing this jacket in favor of the second pattern. This jacket continued to be issued until all supplies were exhausted, and this jacket saw use in literally every theater in World War II and was used by the Army and the Army Air Forces. Now, the difference between the first pattern and the second pattern was the elimination of this band on the bottom, the elimination of this double closure here, and the elimination of the buckles and the tabs. And you may ask yourself, why is that such a big deal? Well, put yourself in the place of a factory. You're a factory owner and you have to produce a contract for, let's say, 50,000 of these jackets, okay? We're now really ramping up. We're on a war footing. 50,000 of these jackets. And by eliminating this right here, that's 50,000 times you have to sew an extra band on the bottom of the jacket. 50,000 times that you have to come up with the band. That's 100,000 buttons that you're saving, and that's 100,000 of these tabs and 100,000 buckles that you're saving. That's a lot of material. So you can see that by moving to that second pattern, it really streamlined the process, and it was very effective as far as materials and costs and so forth. These jackets, I wouldn't say that they're rare. You don't find them that often. You find much more of the second pattern. The second pattern basically comes in two styles. You have this color green for the second pattern, then you have the darker green, which is more of a later warp color. You can see, once again, this jacket was used. We have the sergeant stripes on here. It does have a tag, but unfortunately, as so often happens with those tags, the tag is washed out. It's just basically a white piece that's sewn inside. And up here, you can see that I've also used another vintage hanger with this. So, delighted to have this. Now, as far as the story of how I got this jacket, I was at a military show where I set up and was selling items. A friend of mine, he came to the show as well to sell, and we got tables right next to each other. Now, he does remarkable business. He has a lot of great things to sell. He specializes in German and Japanese and foreign, so a lot of interested people at his table. And I did not realize that he had this first pattern, and he also had a second pattern jacket. I didn't realize this until one of his customers asked me for assistance because he was so busy and wanted to see the two jackets that were draped over a chair. They were literally right next to me on a chair. I just had not noticed them. I'd been busy with my table. I'd been busy with his table helping him. And I'm like, sure. So I held up the two HBT jackets. He asked how much, and my friend told him $20 each, which I was impressed. That's a very fair price for HBT jackets. Then the gentleman said to me, "What's up with the one in your right hand?" Referring to this one here. He said, "Why is that got the bottom on that? Was that cut down? Was that a pair of coveralls that were customized?" And the moment that he said that, I knew that I was holding a first pattern. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so close to this, and yet I'm selling it to someone else. The gentleman looked them both over. He said he would take both of them. And then as he inspected them more, he said to me something to the effect of, I primarily collect foreign World War II, and I'm starting to get into US, but I'm not quite ready to make a big leap. I've already bought a lot of stuff. Would you be offended if I didn't buy them? And I was shocked. He was like, yeah, I'm not going to buy it. I took him back, I told him no problem, it's his money. And the moment that he walked away, I said to my friend, I would like to buy this one. I will give you $20 for it. And he said, hey, you're helping me. How about 15? So I was able to acquire from a friend, which makes it even nicer, a beautiful first pattern HBT jacket for $15. And I will tell you that the second one that I had, that I was showing there, sold like that. Someone else came over and was just like, hey man, I like that, $20, I'll take it. So I was very, very, very fortunate to have that happen. So that is the second item that I'd like to share with you with the recent pickups. The final item to share with you today is this beautiful pistol belt. Now, I don't buy pistol belts that much anymore just because they seem to be pretty prevalent. There's still a lot of them out there, and I just don't need that many pistol belts, but I could not pass this one up. And I couldn't pass it up simply because of that absolutely gorgeous US on there. I mean, it's mint. I've never seen a US that strongly stamped. And then when we look over here, we can see RM Company 1942 also really crisp, really dark, just an amazing, amazing find. The belt, at first when I saw it, I thought reproduction. And then as I began to handle it, I realized it's not reproduction, it's wartime. The reproduction belts, they have a very different feel. It's just the weight of the material, it's a little different. The feel of the material is a little different. And I could tell right away feeling this that it was wartime. Plus, there is wear when you look at the buckles and that, you know, you can see that there is some wear to it, consistent with a belt that is from World War II, from 1942. I had to buy it, and the price was $5. So for $5, that was a no-brainer. I added this beautiful, beautiful pistol belt to the collection. Now I just have to figure out what I'm going to do with it, because I'm either going to keep it like this, or I'm now going to look for a beautiful canteen, a beautiful Carlisle pouch, a beautiful magazine pouch, and turn this into a officer's rig, if you will. So, or maybe I'll use it with the HBT jacket here. We'll have to see. So those, ladies and gentlemen, are the three finds. Excuse the notes and the pen there. And the three finds, once again, just to kind of give you a total, we're going to say 45 on that. We'll go high end. So 45, 15 would make that 45, 55, 60, $65 with the belt for the three items, which once again goes to show that if you just take your time, you're patient, and you just realize that good stuff is still out there, you will find the items. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this recent pickup video. I'm very excited to be able to add that armored Ike jacket and that HBT first pattern jacket to my collection, and that pistol belt. I mean, I just can't believe how mint that pistol belt is. And it just goes to show all of you that the stuff is still out there. So don't get discouraged. Keep looking, and stuff will find you. Believe me, stuff will find you. So on that note, this is Steve reminding all of you to, well, keep them rolling.